Welcome back to the podcast. I am your host, Ryan McCrary, and today I am going to be interviewing my cousin, Griff McCrary, who is a golfer from Alabama who suffers from Tourette's. Now, recently he had an article written about him on golf.com. It just goes through his journey from a young child to now playing golf while also dealing with Tourette's. So go check that out. It's on golf.com. Then later on in the pod, Thomas is going to join me, and we are going to be listing our top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL. So this is going to be a fun podcast, and I hope you enjoy. All right, so you're 18 years old, right?
Yes, sir.
So you're 18 years old. Oh,
17.
Oh, you're 17? Oh, you're not even 18 years old yet. Wow. So you're 17 years old and you're a golfer and you have Tourette's. So for anyone that isn't familiar with Tourette's, can you describe it and how it affects your daily routine?
So basically it really doesn't it helps it. Well, I don't really know what to say, but I would say I have motor and vocal tics. So I have arm thrust and I do all kinds of stuff with my arms. Sometimes I even kick my leg a little bit, and I have vocal tics that I cuss and I do all that stuff, and I'll just blurt out obscenities and all that crap. But it some days are really bad and some days are okay. The okay days I really don't have a problem with it, but when it's bad, well, let's just put this, when I get done with the day, I'm exhausted. I
Right.
don't know. I can't. I go straight to sleep around 7:30, and I usually go to sleep 9:30.
Yeah. As I understand it, normally people that have Tourette's, it gets better over time as they grow up and their tics will start to fade away. But you have a more severe form of Tourette's, and your tics are worse than the average person that has Tourette's. And there's not a lot of people in the United States that have Tourette's as severe as yours. And that's how I understand it. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, I'll put it this way: the people that have the worst ticks are usually the people that get it. I would think most people that I've actually talked to with Tourette's have when they're when I don't really know what to say. What was the question?
No, I was just asking. I was just saying that how I understand Tourette's is that for the majority of people that have it, it usually goes away and their tics will start to go away when they get older. But for people like you that have a more severe form of Tourette's, it's harder to control, and there's not many people in the United States that have Tourette's that are this severe or that's this severe. Is that
Yeah,
right?
that's basically it. That's very correct.
All right. So, I don't. Do you know specifically when the article about you was posted? Was it earlier this week or about a week ago?
Well, I was at the Highland Oaks tournament not last Wednesday, not the 20th, May 20th, and and my mom told me after the tournament that it had been posted, and I looked, it is on the front page of golf.com, which is which is pretty big.
Right. Um, so for people who don't know, yeah, you have Griff has um, he had an article written about him that was posted on a website called golf.com, which is an international website. So what's it like to have an article written about you on a website as big as golf.com is?
I would say that I like it and all that, but it doesn't change who I am. It doesn't make me famous. Well, in some ways it might to other people, but I think of it as just basically I'm trying to help other people and spread the word about Tourette's, not trying to make me famous and all that stuff.
Right. So yeah, the article has gotten a lot of attention since it's been posted. Do you welcome that attention? How do you feel about all this new attention you're getting?
Well, I think I think it's cool that I'm getting a lot of attention. I mean, I've gotten people from Russia, Italy, Texas, New York. I've gotten all kinds of there are people that emailing me all the way across the world and
Right.
wanting to know about how I live with this and how to fix my daily life and all that stuff. And I even had a text from a guy from Texas that was kind of weird, But he said that he wanted me to fly down there, and he was going to pay for my flight to go down to Texas and actually play golf with me, or he was going to fly down to Troy and play golf with me.
Oh, wow.
But I don't know if we're going to do that. I
Right.
don't know. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Kind of
Wow. That's cool. So in the article, it mentions that at a young age, you had decided to quit team sports, and you switched to golf. Why did you make that switch, and what about the sport of golf intrigued you at the time?
Well, my dad, when I was about, how old was I, Dad? When I went to the Masters?
11.
I was 11 years old, and my dad took me to the Masters, and I loved everything about it. It was also the beautifulest place you'll ever be in the whole United States. It's about as good as it gets. But before that, I actually didn't like golf. My dad had taken me all these golf tournaments with him, and he practices and all that stuff, and I actually got to play with him. To tell you the truth, when I was 11 years old, before I went to the Masters, I made my first hole-in-one. And my dad had to make me get out of the cart to hit the ball, and I made a hole-in-one. And then we had to go play all the rest of the 9 holes, and I was ticked. I didn't want to
Right.
play with hole after I made that hole-in-one. I was scared I was going to screw everything else up.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah. So how has having a dad who was like an All-American in college, how has that helped you have your own success so far?
Well, it's helped me a lot of ways. He actually knows all about golf, and he knows that how to practice the right way, and he's known how to play with the old equipment and the new equipment. So that's really big help. And I would say that he's been a lot bigger tournaments than I have, and when I get in that stage where I'm going to really, really big tournaments, he'll know how to manage me, and he'll know how to tell me how to focus in on my game and not everybody else's game.
Right. Yeah. So, how hard or how difficult is it when you're playing golf to kind of control your ticks?
I mean, it's difficult, but when I get in, let's put it this way: when somebody else is hitting, I don't tick at all. I try to express as much as I can, and then when I'm walking to my ball, I kind of tick a lot more. When I stand over that golf ball, I don't tick. I don't tick at all. It's like just focused in, and I'm done. It's like I don't even have Tourette's when I'm hitting the ball. But the thing is, my coach, my Wallace State golf coach that I go to college with, he used to have really, really bad Tourette's, and it affected him everywhere. It affected him on the golf course. It affected him every way. But he got to point in time that a guy told me his point in time that he couldn't even hit the golf ball. He was standing there with the golf ball 3 or 4 minutes before he even took a swing at it.
Yeah.
He used to re-grip the club. He used to pop his arms and all that stuff, and he could not hit the ball.
Yeah. Wow. So I want to talk about your coach. So, you're going to college now to play golf at Wallace State. I mean, how much easier is the transition going to be now, knowing that you have a coach who suffers from Tourette's and knows what you're going through?
Well, I'll give you a story. I'll give you a really good example. So, like, say you're going to a big college like Auburn or Alabama, and you have severe Tourette's or coprolalia and all this stuff, and that coach does not know anything about it. Put it that way, and then put yourself in the shoes where you're got Tourette's and coprolalia and all that stuff. You got a coach that has everything you've been through. He's been in your shoes. He's been in everything you've done, and just put it that way. And I think it's I think Jesus, God Himself, sent him to me. And I found out that it's gonna be okay.
Yeah. Awesome. Man, you have such a positive attitude about Tourette's. How do you stay positive and not let yourself get down, even though you're dealing with something that affects you every day and makes life very difficult to go through every day?
Well, I would say that I'm positive a lot about it, but also when I get frustrated with it. I'm over here sitting there. I'm right now, and I'm getting kind of frustrated because I'm flipping my dad off, which is not very good. But
Right.
So I try to stay positive as much as I can, but there's some times where I just get mad because
Right.
my ticks are so bad. I can't control myself. I can't stop, and I can't focus. When I have bad ticks in school, I make D's and F's because I can't focus.
Right. So, when you when you signed to go to Wallace State, how did it feel? Because with Tourette's, it's hard to have a social life because people are just they're kind of rude and mean. And when you have Tourette's and you're ticking all the time, it's kind of hard to have a social life. How did it make you feel when other people your age, all your peers, and all these people came to celebrate you signing with Wallace State?
Well, to tell you the truth, I didn't know I had that many friends. But I would I mean, I had this guy named Tommy Friday come over, and actually his truck broke down or something like that, and he had to go get it serviced. And he actually borrowed his boss's truck to go over there just to see me sign.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I liked the day, and I thought it was awesome. But I was very surprised that we had over 50-something people show up at just one person's signing day.
Yeah, that doesn't really happen that often. I mean, I've been to people's signing days here in Cartersville, and it's not there is rarely 50 people there. So it's amazing to see that people were willing to go support you on that day, because that's like every athlete's dream. Like everyone wants to grow up. Everyone growing up playing sports wants to be able to sign. You've stated that, and I quote, "I have Tourette's, but Tourette's doesn't have me." What are you doing each and every day to make this statement true?
Well, I just try my best every single day, give it all I got. And when I get at the end of the day, I want to say that same statement and see how the day went. I mean, at the end of the day, I want to say that I have Tourette's, but Tourette's does not have me. And I want to say that I love myself for who I am.
Right. Awesome. Do you feel like your story can help other people who have Tourette's just like yourself?
Well, it actually already has. I know several people that had it, and it's helped because I've gotten emails out the wazoo. Just people just loving my article and telling me how much it's helped their sons. And I would say that if you've got Tourette's and you're looking at how to help people and you want to know how to get help, I would say go to anywhere that you can go that has professional help. Because I went to a girl named Jan Rao, and I went to Tampa at Rogers, and I loved it there. But if you've got Tourette's, I would say find out what your triggers are and what triggers your tics, and then from there you can figure out how to manage them.
Yeah. If you had any advice for someone struggling with Tourette's, what would it be?
Probably the same thing, really. I mean, figure out the triggers, because if you've got triggers, and as long as you know what the trigger is, you can manage it a lot better. If you don't know what the trigger is, then it's gonna be a lot harder. But I would say if you go get professional help, I would say find out what your triggers are, because if you can find out what your triggers are, it's gonna make a lot of difference.
Right. Yeah, that's great advice. It's mentioned in the article. I got one more question, and this will be it. In the article, there is mentioned that you have the talent to go wherever you have the talent in golf to go to whatever university that you want, and that one day you could play golf professionally. Do you believe that you are talented enough and have the skills to make it to that level?
Well, I mean, I think I have one. My dad's told me several times, and I believe it. He says I have the best hand-eye coordination that he's ever seen out of a 17, 15, 16, any teenager. He's never seen anything like it. But I think it is true. If I just work my butt off at it every single day, I think I can go pro.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, your story is amazing. Your positivity is awesome to see. And I mean this, you're an inspiration. Good luck on your journey. Just if you stay passionate about golf and keep working your tail off, I mean, you'll be able to make it. But yeah, this is a great interview. Thank you for being willing to do this. This is a great interview.
Yeah, thank you, buddy.
Yeah, no problem. And now I am with Thomas, and we're going to be ranking the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL right now, our personal top 10. How are you doing yours? Because I mean, I don't know how you're ranking or how you're doing your rankings. Like, are you basing it just off last season? Like, are you basing it just off talent? Like, how are you doing it?
I'm doing it both. I'm doing a combination of different things. I'm basing it off of, obviously talent is going to be a factor.
Right.
I'm also basing it off like production from the last, 2 to 3 years. Not like production over your whole career, because I don't feel like it's fair to put somebody,
right,
high on the list just because they produced or they had a really good year in like 2011 or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
And then also like wins and like awards. So like MVPs play a big part of this. Also like Super Bowls. So that's how I'm doing my list.
Okay. Yeah. I'm basically doing the same thing, the same way. I put a huge emphasis on the playoffs. I mean, you'll see that in my list. It'll be why some players are lower and some players are higher. But I'm also basing it off talent, production over the last, I'll say 2 years. But I put what you did last year means the most to me. That matters more than what you did 2 years ago.
Right.
It's really, really heavily based off of last season. I do take into account what you did 2 years ago. So there's like a few players that had or there's one player specifically that had a rough season last year. But they have had success prior to last year, so that's why they're making an appearance on my list.
Got you.
But yeah, we're gonna start off from 10, and get down to 1. You can start off.
All right, cool. So my number 10 quarterback is Matt Ryan of the Atlanta Falcons. Last season he threw for almost 4,500 passing yards. Had 26 touchdowns, but did have 14 interceptions. Last year was a kind of a down year for him. But he's had a lot of success over the past 3 years. Obviously, won MVP in 2016. They made it to the Super Bowl that year. He's got 4 Pro Bowls under his belt. They're not all recent, but he's also he's got a pretty good record for a starting quarterback. He's 109-80, which is not like terrible, but it's not great, but it's solid.
Right. Yeah.
But Matt Ryan would be higher, but he's definitely digressed in his abilities over the past few years. Like, I don't feel like he's got the arm that he did. I mean, the production is still there, but like I said, last season was an off year for him.
Right.
So that's one of the main reasons he's at 10 and not higher on the list.
Yeah. I have Matt Ryan at 10 also, and the reason he's at 10 is because he's so talented. Like, the accuracy's there. He's got really good pocket presence. His mobility within the pocket's good. But last year he had a rough year. He threw for 26 touchdowns, 14 picks. He was turnover prone a little bit. But he's had a lot of success with not great situations around him. Like, he plays very, very well, even when his offensive line is poor, even when he has no run game, even when the defense is just not up to par, and he thrives in those situations. That's why it makes an appearance on the list. Now, right now, age is kind of kicking his butt. His arm strength is not there.
Right.
And there's other players on this list, other quarterbacks that are aging and that are hitting around 40 years old. The arm strength is still there. It's digressed a lot. Like, his arm strength is fading quickly.
Yeah.
But he's still a very talented quarterback. And like you said, he was an MVP in 2016. He had an MVP caliber season in 2018.
Right.
I think that matters. He's a clutch quarterback, good playoff performer. And just the last couple of years, he's been in a really, really bad situation.
Right.
Not built for, the team is just not built for success. And he still thrived in those conditions. That's why he's at 10 for me. But yeah, he's starting to digress a little bit. The production last year was a little bit rough. I mean, it was kind of poor. I mean, it was a down season for him. But yeah, he's still extremely talented. And that's why he makes an appearance on my list.
Yeah. All right, so my number 9 is Carson Wentz of the Philadelphia Eagles. Last year was the first year that he's started 16 games since his rookie year. So in 2017 and 2018, he was injured at the end of, was it 2017? The end of 2017.
Yeah. Well, no,
he was
2017
injured.
was his MVP year.
was the
Yeah.
year
So,
that
yeah,
he
got hurt.
should have won MVP.
And he could have won MVP had he not got
Right.
injured. I think Todd Gurley should have won MVP. But yeah, that was the year he got hurt.
And then 2018, I think he only played 9 games, or maybe he's 11 or something like that. But he has really struggled with the injury bug. Last year, though, played all 16 games. Did get hurt in their first playoff game and only playoff game against the Seahawks, I believe. But last year, threw for a little over 4,000 yards, had 27 passing touchdowns to 7 interceptions. I'm going to give him partial credit for Super Bowl 52 because he was so fantastic in the regular season, and he really helped them get to a place where they could have like a first-round bye and get ready to prepare for having Nick Foles as their starter.
Right.
I mean, Nick Foles won the Super Bowl, but I'm going to give Carson Wentz partial credit. So he has a half Super Bowl.
Okay.
He's a one-time Pro Bowler and a one-time second-team All-Pro. He's super talented. I think if he didn't have the injury bug, he'd be closer to the top 5, especially if he had gotten that MVP in 2017. Like, if he had been able to finish the season, I think he would have won MVP pretty easily. He had more touchdowns and less picks than Tom Brady did, even with being out for like the last 4 games of the season.
Yeah.
And Tom Brady won MVP that year.
Yeah, that was so stupid.
Yeah,
I'm still so mad. Like, Tom Brady should not have won it over Todd Gurley.
Right.
Much less Carson Wentz.
Right.
And that was
Tom
ridiculous.
Brady probably should have came in like 3rd in MVP.
And Tom
voting.
Brady was terrible the last couple of
weeks.
games of the season. He was awful. And Todd Gurley was amazing.
Yeah.
That MVP voting still makes me mad. But, yeah, Carson Wentz, totally agree with him being a top 10 quarterback. But number 9 for me, you're going to be surprised, I think. It's Kirk Cousins from the Vikings.
Okay. Yeah, I thought about putting him top 10, but he's kind of like a fringe player for me.
Yeah, he's been super consistent with the Vikings the last couple of years. The production's there. And last year, he was really, really good. He's very talented. He's more mobile within the pocket than you think. He can make plays on the run. Obviously not as good as other quarterbacks can, like Russell Wilson, Mahomes, Deshaun Watson.
Right.
But he's a very, very talented passer. He's amazing in play action. Like, I think I don't know what his completion percentage was in play action this year. I think it was hovering around 80%. It was insane.
Yeah.
He's a great play-action passer, and the reason why he makes the list is he went toe-to-toe with Drew Brees in the playoffs and outplayed him. He was amazing in the was it a wild card round? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was wild card.
In the wild card round, he went to New Orleans, outplayed Drew Brees, and got the victory. That was a huge moment for his career. I thought he was really, really good last season. I think he's very underrated. Now, I can see an argument for him not being on the list because, yes, when the lights are the brightest, he has a tendency not to show up. But he was so good last year. He's been very consistent with the Vikings the last couple of years. And I think him finally having that moment where he showed up and he played like an elite quarterback in the playoffs on that stage, he's the number 9 quarterback in the league to me.
Yeah. He's a fringe guy for me.
Right.
I get why you have him top 10, but like you said, he does have a tendency to not show up when the lights are the brightest, in primetime situations or big games. He just doesn't really show up. And he has been really consistent with the Vikings, and he was good with the Redskins as well.
Right.
But I don't know. The talent is not as good as some other guys that I have on my list, and the production is good from Cousins, but do
you think he's better than Matt Ryan?
Talent-wise, right now, probably.
Yeah, I would say I would agree. Yeah, I'd say so. And that's
Right.
part of the reason why he's number 9 and not 10.
Yeah, right now, probably better than Matt Ryan. But Matt Ryan, production-wise, has been really good when you take into consideration like his past 3 years.
Right.
I know he hasn't won in the past 2 years, but I don't necessarily pin that all on him.
Yeah,
I
agree.
Coaching and
for me, my list is heavily based off of last season.
Yeah.
Although I do take the prior years into consideration, it's why Matt Ryan's on my list. I mean, with the way I did this ranking, Kirk Cousins was I couldn't have Kirk Cousins not on the list and have Matt Ryan on the list.
Right. So my number 8 is Aaron Rodgers of the Green Bay Packers. Last year threw for 4,002 yards. Had 26 passing touchdowns and 4 interceptions. The 4 interceptions is really good. But he just didn't look the same last year. I know it was a new offense and they were more relying on the run and play action game. Sometimes he just didn't seem comfortable in the new offense, and there were a lot of throws that were just off for him. Like the accuracy seemed to drop off a little bit from years prior. Over the past 3 years, he has struggled. Like last year, they went 13-3. They won. They got a first-round bye. They did lose in the divisional they got slaughtered in the divisional by the 49ers.
No, that was actually the conference championship.
That's right, because they played the Seahawks in the divisional. Sorry. In the conference championship, they got slaughtered by the 49ers. But they haven't been good the prior 2 years. Like, he started all 16 games in 2018, and they went 7-9. Or 6-9-1 maybe. I don't remember. And then the year before that, he had broken his collarbone, but then when he came back, he wasn't good.
Right.
So he's kind of struggled over the past 3 years, but he's just – it just seems like he's grandfathered in to be a good quarterback. And he's still, like, super talented. The talent level is still there, and he has more talent than some of the guys that I have above him, but the production and the winnings over the past 3 years don't really don't really match with the guys in front that I have in front of him.
Right, yeah.
So that's why I have him at 8.
Okay, my number 8 is your number 9, and that's Carson Wentz.
Okay.
And yeah, I think Carson Wentz is super talented. Like, I think he's talented enough to be in my top 5, to be in the top 5. I really do. The reason he's so low is because he is injury prone, and like you mentioned this already, like he's super injury prone. He got injured at the end of what could have been his MVP season in 2017. He got hurt last year, and couldn't play in the playoffs. So Josh McCown had to step in and play in the playoff game. But a huge reason why Carson Wentz is at 8 for me, or why he's in the top 10, in my opinion, is the way he carried the Eagles last year. When all his receivers got injured and they caught the injury bug, his receivers were Greg Ward and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. Now, no disrespect to those guys, because they did play well, but that is not a good receiving core. That's just not. Now, although he had Zach Ertz, who was one of the better tight ends in the league.
Right.
But when your top 2 receivers are Greg Ward, who was a quarterback in college, this is the first time he's ever played a receiver, and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, another young guy, that's not a strong receiving core, and not a receiving core you can trust when you're competing with the Cowboys for the division.
Right.
And he went with those guys, with that offense. He went and beat the Cowboys to clinch the division, and he outplayed that. And I mean, that's a huge accomplishment in my opinion. And yeah, he was an MVP caliber player in 2017. He could have won MVP that year, and that just shows that he's a top 5 talent in the league. But what he was able to do with very little talent around him at the end of last season is why he's a top 10 quarterback to me.
So my number 7 is Dak Prescott of the Cowboys. Had a fantastic year production-wise in 2019. Had 4,902 passing yards, almost 5,000 yards, 30 touchdowns to 11 interceptions. He's been really good production-wise over his entire career. Obviously, his rookie year, won Offensive Rookie of the Year, was just kind of came out of nowhere, replacing Tony Romo. Nobody really had heard of him unless you were like a avid college football fan. You didn't really know who Dak Prescott was.
Right.
I think he was a 4th-round draft pick. They just kind of brought him in to back up Tony Romo and then maybe, take his place. But then Romo got injured. Dak came in and just lit it up. And so, obviously, he's been the starter ever since. The production has been really, really good for Dak over his entire career so far. That's the main reason that he is at 7. He probably would be lower because he does have a tendency to not play super well in bigger games or against better opponents. It seems like last year they had like a fairly weak schedule, and then when they did play good teams, Dak struggled.
Right.
But he's been very good production-wise. I mean, part of that does have to do with having a lot of pieces around him. Like, he's got a great offensive line, a great running back. He's got really good receivers. but that's why he's at 7 because of the production over these past years. I know he hasn't really won, like when it comes to the playoffs especially. He hasn't really won anything, and last year didn't make the playoffs. I think he only has one playoff win on his carear. Maybe 2.
I think he has 2. Yeah. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure they beat Seattle that one year. Because you remember Alan Hearns, like his leg
broke his ankle.
Split in half. Or
he broke
his ankle. That's what it was.
Yeah, that was nasty. I think he has 2 playoff wins.
Yeah, maybe.
He definitely has 1. I know that.
Yeah, I know he has 1, but I think
he might have 2.
Yeah, he is 40-24 as a starter, which is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously he has a lot of talent around him, and he's in a weaker division.
No, it sucks.
Yeah, the Eagles were good.
They're still good.
They're still good if they can stay healthy. But the Redskins are not good, and the Giants haven't been good in 5 years.
Yeah.
So that's why he's at 7. He could be lower. And he could be higher if I was really just basing this off of purely stats and production. So
yeah. He was gonna make it. He was gonna make it on my list if I just based this off purely production. He was gonna make my list. Now the first top 10 the first time I made this list, I just looked at stats, the production for the last couple of years, and Dak was at 10. Then I watched the guys. I went and I watched some games from a few guys. And no, Dak was not going to make my list. And here's the reason why. There is no reason why the Cowboys should not have been in the playoffs last year. Dak struggled against actually good opponents, and you had one game. All you got to do is beat the Eagles, whose top receivers are Greg Ward and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. You have a talented offensive line. You have one of the most talented receivers in the league in Amari Cooper. He's super talented. You also have Michael Gallup. You have Ezekiel Elliott. You have a ton of weapons around you. Yes, the defense was underwhelming last year. You have to win that game. And look, Carson Wentz is great. I don't care. You have to beat that team. You got to step up when the lights are the brightest. And when your team needs a victory to make the playoffs, and you're facing a team who should not beat you, who you're more talented than, and you don't show up, that's a huge issue for me. And that has the production. But I don't care if you can't perform in the playoffs. I don't care if you can't perform in big games. That's an issue that I and a lot of people have with Kirk Cousins, and he showed up in the playoffs. Dak has yet to really do that. And, that's the big reason why. Him not winning that game against the Eagles in the last week of the season last year was a huge issue to me. Or I don't know if it was the last week of the season. It may have been week 16 or week 15.
I think so.
I don't think it was the last week of the season. But if you win that game, your chances of winning the division skyrocket.
Well, they would have won the division if they won that last game. Because they had already
was it a division clinching game? I can't remember if it was.
I think it was because hadn't they already beaten the Eagles earlier, or did the Eagles sweep them?
I think the Eagles swept them.
Okay, maybe so.
Yeah.
I really can't remember.
I think the Eagles swept them.
Because I remember it was either if one team, I can't remember which team it was. I was thinking it was the Eagles. If the Eagles beat the Cowboys, they
clinched the division, and the Cowboys would have to win the next week, right?
Something like that, maybe. I don't really remember.
Yeah, it was complicated, but yeah.
It was complicated.
Yeah.
So who's your number 7 then?
But yeah, I just the Dak Prescott conversation is interesting because he is pretty talented. When you watch him play, the talent is there. Now there's a lot of guys more talented than him on my list, but when you're not showing up in big games, it's an issue for me. And that's why I didn't make the list. He was a fringe guy to me. The highest he was going to be on my list was 10. But yeah, and sorry, Dak Prescott. I didn't mean to just crap on you there, but show up. Number 7 for me is Tom Brady, for the Patriots.
Buccaneers.
Buccaneers. Yeah, Buccaneers now, but yeah, he played for the Patriots last season.
Correct.
The last few years, he has not had a great situation around them.
Right.
Last year, the first couple weeks, Tom Brady was one of the best quarterbacks in the entire league when he had Josh Gordon, Antonio Brown. He had nice weapons around him. They did have an easy schedule, but when he had weapons around him, he was awesome.
Right.
When Josh Gordon got cut, they both got cut. When both those guys left the team, he struggled a bit because the weapons he had were awful. Like, Philip Dorsett was terrible. Nikhil Harry was out most of the season. Didn't even play a lot his rookie year.
The only consistency he had was Julian Edelman.
Yeah, Julian Edelman. And he's
just like
a slot receiver.
I mean,
he's good. He's a good slot
but-
receiver, but he's a slot receiver. Like, there's not much you can do.
But I mean, like, slot receivers are obviously valuable. It's not like he doesn't mean anything, but you also have to have pieces around. You can't just have like a good slot receiver.
When your best receiver is not like a number one guy you can put on the outside and say, "Hey, beat your man. We're gonna run a go route." It's kind of tough.
Right.
Or if you're just not a dominant receiver, like Michael Thomas, who's a slot receiver, but he's extremely dominant. You can play him on the outside. You can do multiple things with him. Can't do that with Julian Edelman. But I still think the talent is there with Tom Brady. He is so smart in the pocket. His pocket presence is amazing. He's still one of the smartest quarterbacks in the league. His football IQ, through the roof. He's very accurate. The arm strength is still there. Even though he's aging, how old is he now? 41? 42?
Yeah.
The arm strength is still there. It hasn't faded yet. And for just the talent he has still is the reason why he's at 7. Now, he hasn't done much in 2018 was a rough year for him in the playoffs. Was it great? In 2017, he was amazing in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And then they finished runner-up in the Super Bowl.
Right.
He was awesome in that playoff
And that was like a
run.
high-scoring game.
Yeah.
And in 2018, he wasn't that good in the playoffs, and they still ended up winning the Super Bowl somehow.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
that defense was really good.
Yeah, and last year the advanced metrics for Tom Brady aren't pretty, but I think it's because the teammates he had around him were not very good. Like who was his best weapon? Like Edelman.
Yeah, Edelman.
He had the run game. He had no really good run game. Like Sony Michel
was really good his
pretty
rookie year,
disappointing.
but like last year
he was not very
struggled.
good. And I mean, and like I said, when he had talent around him, when he had Josh Gordon and Antonio Brown, he was one of the best quarterbacks in the entire league. And because of the talent, I still think he's one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL.
And I think he's going to be great next year because he's going to have so many weapons around
He's
him.
going to be a top 5 quarterback next year. Possibly top 3. Like he could win the MVP award. That's how much talent's around him. He's in such a good situation.
4 MVPs for Tom.
Yeah, like if we next year if we do this, he'll be top 5. I think. Like I expect him to be top 5. That's how good I think he'll be this season. Yeah. And that's how talented I think he is. He's 42, but he's still one of the best quarterbacks in the league to me. That's insane.
Well, Tom is my number 6 on my list. Last year, obviously not a great season. Had a little bit over 4,000 passing yards. Had 24 passing touchdowns to 8 picks. Right at 60% completion percentage. So completion percentage wasn't great. But like you said, didn't have weapons around him. But, I mean, he's been winning. Like, they still are winning. I know a lot of it is because of his defense, but, like, in 2017, he was fantastic. 2018, he wasn't great, but they still won the Super Bowl. And last year, obviously, they were out in the divisional round.
Yeah.
Or was it wild card?
Actually, it was the wild
right.
card.
It was a wild card against the Titans. But I just want to read his career accolades because it's
okay.
It's a lot.
Yes.
I was just looking at it and I was like, good grief, this dude really is the GOAT. Like, it's unquestioned. All right, 6-time Super Bowl champion. That in itself is insane. He won Super Bowl 36, 38, 39, 49, 51, and 53.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like he just won a bunch of Super Bowls close together. Like, over his 20-year career, he's won them throughout and been to more than – I can't remember how many he's been to.
9?
9, I think.
Yeah, he's lost twice.
Lost 2 to the Giants and once to the Eagles.
Okay, so he's been to
9.
Yeah, 9. Yeah. Okay.
So, and he's a 4-time Super Bowl MVP, 14-time Pro Bowler, 3-time first-team All-Pro, 2-time second-team All-Pro, 2007, 2010, and 2017 MVP, 2007 and 2010 Offensive Player of the Year, and the 2009 Comeback Player of the Year.
Yeah.
And not to mention all the All-Decade and Top 100 teams that he's made. So I know that's not necessarily a reason to put him high on your list, but he's had a fantastic career, and I thought it was just worth bringing up.
Yeah, right.
And his career record is insane as well.
Yeah.
219 wins to 64 losses.
What do you know what that winning percentage is?
I don't. It's
You said 219.
219 to 64.
All right.
Let's calculated it up.
Yeah, you go calculate it. I'm dumb, so I will let you calculate it. But yeah, okay. So you had Tom Brady at 6, Aaron Rodgers at 7. Why did you have Tom Brady ahead of Aaron Rodgers?
Because Tom Brady, I think like right now, I mean obviously the winning is really important. So Tom has recently won an MVP, really recently. I know maybe it wasn't deserved,
Right.
but they've won a Super Bowl. He's been to 2 Super Bowls very recently.
Yeah.
And Rodgers, just over the past 3 years, they haven't been winning except for last year. And even last year, they just had a really weak schedule and were in a weak division.
Yeah.
So they were they're not as good as their record shows. They were 13-3 last year, but they weren't that good last year.
Right, yeah. I agree.
And Rodgers has been falling off. I wouldn't say drastically, but it's been very noticeable. Like the ball placement's just not the same.
Right.
And Tom, I haven't seen like a ridiculous fall off from him.
Right.
Over the past few years.
Yeah. For me, Aaron Rodgers is my number 6. He's still one of the most talented quarterbacks in the league. His arm strength is there. His ability to make throws off platform is insane when you watch him. It's crazy what this guy can do. And he had a good year last year. The advanced metrics for him were pretty impressive, and they were much better than Tom Brady's. I think he's more talented than Tom now, which is why I put him at 6. Aaron Rodgers is really good. And the last year, he led the Packers to a 13-3 record. I totally agree. It's like they were not a 13-3 team. Like they were not that good. They did have a weak division. And they made it to the conference championship because they had a bye week and they beat the Seahawks.
They had tough games too. Like they had games where they struggled against the Redskins and against the Giants last year, which is not acceptable if you're supposed to be this 13-3 team that's fantastic and you're the second seed in the NFC. Why are you struggling against the Giants and the Redskins?
Right. Yeah, but in Rodgers' advanced metrics last year, if you can take a look at those on, I think it's the site I was looking at is like football, or it's like playerprofile.com.
Okay.
Where you can look up advanced stats for quarterbacks, and they were impressive. I mean, it's why I have him at 6. But yeah, he has declined a little bit. In the last couple of years, the Packers have not been winning. That's why I have him at 6. That's why I have Rodgers and Brady at where they are on my list, because the last couple of years, they have declined a little bit, and they're not winning as much. Tom Brady has, but it has, like in 2018, it was not because of him.
Right.
It's because of the defense. Last year he had a rough year, but for them, it's the talent that keeps them in the top 10. Like Rodgers is extremely talented. He makes throws on the run. He's an excellent playmaker. He's extremely accurate, and his talent is why he's at 6 for me. I can see an argument for him being lower, but when you just watch him play, the throws he makes off platform, and he can make throws that other quarterbacks can't. It's really impressive.
So I calculated up. Tom Brady's 77% win percentage.
Yes?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Wild.
It's crazy. All right, so getting into the top 5. I think our top 5 are probably going to be the same guys. I don't know if it's going to be the same order.
I think it's the same order.
Probably. All right, well, my number 5 is Lamar Jackson of the Baltimore Ravens. Had an MVP season last year, but that was really – last year was his first season as a full starter, and the year before he was not good.
Right.
So that's why he's at number 5. He would be higher, but I've only seen 1 year of production, and he has 2 really bad playoff losses.
Yeah.
So that's why he's at 5. I'm not hating on Lamar. I think Lamar's really, really talented, but I haven't seen enough in the playoffs from him, and he's only had 1 year as a full-time starter. But last year was a really good year for him. 3,127 passing yards for him. 36 passing touchdowns, led the league in passing touchdowns to only 6 interceptions. 66% completion percentage. And then on top of that, 1,200 rushing yards and 7 rushing touchdowns at quarterback.
Yeah.
That's pretty insane. He's got a career record of 19-3, which is a really good start so far. And he made the Pro Bowl, was the quarterback of the first team All-Pro. And he was the 2019 MVP last year. So he had a great season, and he's improved. He improved drastically from 2018 to 2019, especially as a passer. I don't know if he improved so much as a runner, because he's just a really naturally gifted runner. But as a passer, he took strides and just became almost like elite as a passer last year.
Yeah.
He still has some stuff to work on, obviously. But if he can continue to get better and if he can get some wins in the playoffs, he'll definitely be much higher on my list.
Yeah. Number 5 for me is Lamar Jackson as well. He's so talented. And, yeah, he has improved so much as a passer. His rookie year, he could not throw the ball, like, at all. And it's a huge reason why the Ravens fell apart in the playoffs against the Chargers. He was bad in that game. But this year, he took a huge leap as a passer. He improved a lot. I mean, he's an extremely talented passer now. And that combined with his rushing ability, it's insane. Like, he's so elusive in the open field, and he makes a grown man look silly. He is so talented. He's talented enough to be top 3, but the playoff performances have not been pretty for him. And I know he threw for a ton of yards against the Titans last year in the playoffs, but he was not good in that game. He turned the ball over multiple times. And he threw 2 picks. He had another fumble that he didn't lose, but he had a fumble. He was missing throws. He had Marquise Brown wide open on a post route, which would have been a touchdown. He missed him. He just didn't see him. He didn't throw him the ball. And then he was inaccurate. The ball placement wasn't there in that game, and he was a huge reason why the Ravens lost.
Right.
Now, his teammates didn't play great, but he also was at fault for that playoff loss. And for me to put him top 3, he's got to come through in the playoffs. If he does that this year, if he has a nice playoff run this year, I will put him top 3, maybe even like 2, because I think he's that talented. And yeah, he won MVP last year. He was first team All-Pro, and he had such a fantastic year, and that's why he's at 5 for me. I think he's so talented. I love Lamar Jackson. Watching him play, it's insane what this guy does. But the playoff losses have not been pretty for him, and I just need to see him perform on that stage.
Yeah. So number 4 for me is Deshaun Watson of the Houston Texans. I hate saying of the Houston Texans because I think if he was on any other team, he would be so much better and potentially even have a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Because I think the Texans are holding him back a lot right now. He doesn't have a good receiver anymore. I mean, like, Brandon Cooks is good, but Brandon, like you said before, Brandon Cooks is like one hit away from being.
He's literally one hit away from being a vegetable.
Yeah.
This dude is about he's gonna be
had
brain
so
dead.
Concussions.
Yeah, one more concussion and he's gonna be brain dead.
Basically, and I mean they haven't really had anything around him besides DeAndre Hopkins his whole career. He's had a terrible offensive line his entire career. I think his rookie year, or no, not his rookie year, the next year, because he didn't play. He got hurt his rookie year. But the next year, he was the most sacked quarterback in the league, I believe.
Yeah.
And then last year, he was sacked a lot as well. I think it was less last year just because they added, what's his name, the tackle that they got from Miami, Laramie Tunsil.
Yeah, Laramie Tunsil.
They got Laramie Tunsil, and so that did help. But Deshaun statistically wasn't fantastic. He had 3,852 passing yards, 26 passing touchdowns, 12 interceptions. The interceptions were a little high. Did have a good completion percentage at 67%, and then 413 rushing yards with 7 touchdowns on top of that. So it's solid, but I think he could have done a lot better on a different team. A lot of times he was having to run for his life because pressure was getting there immediately because of how terrible that offensive line is. And then they didn't perform very well in the playoffs against the Chiefs. They did have a comeback victory against the Bills, which the Bills definitely should have won that game.
Yeah.
But they did have a comeback victory. Deshaun is really good at navigating the pocket and evading sacks, but he does have a problem where he holds onto the ball way too long and just tries to make a play instead of throwing it away. So that's something he needs to work on. But I think he could be higher, but the talent is really what's keeping him at 4. Like, he's very talented. He could be lower. He could be higher. If he was on a different team with more talent around him, I think the production would be better than it is, and so he would be higher. But he could be lower than this, but based on the talent alone, he's at 4 for me.
Yeah. I think the only reason that Deshaun Watson is at 4 for me is because he's only had one good year. That's really the only reason why he's at 4. He could be higher. He's probably, I don't want to say he's more talented than, but he can carry a team unlike many players in the National Football League. And that's a huge reason why he's at 4 for me. Last year he was incredible. He was an MVP candidate. He had a great year, and he has not had a whole lot around him. Hopkins is a great receiver. I'll give you that. But his offensive line has been terrible. Hasn't had much of a run game. And Bill O'Brien is an awful just coach. He's a terrible coach.
GM.
And GM. He's one of the worst GMs in the league. The decisions he's made this offseason have been pitiful, and I just don't understand what he's doing. Now Deshaun Watson is on a much worse offense. They traded Hopkins for a second-round pick and David Johnson, which was an awful trade.
Who's on a terrible contract.
He's on a terrible contract. Then they traded their second-round pick, which they could have used on Denzel Mims, who was a top 5 receiver in the class to me. They traded that second-round pick for Brandon Cooks, who's talented. The production's been good, but he's on a bad contract too, and he's like a few concussions away from retirement. Like, if he gets another concussion, he might be quitting the game of football. So, what are you doing? But yeah, Deshaun Watson has been successful with all that happening around him. He's so good at making plays outside of the pocket. Just making plays happen when there isn't a play to be made. He makes things happen out of nothing. And that's a huge reason why he's at 4 for me. He's so talented. And he was absolutely incredible in the playoffs against the Bills. Even against the Chiefs, he was good. Their defense just fell apart. But he was amazing in the divisional, it was the wild card round against the Bills. They fell behind 13-0 at halftime. He came out in the second half, and he was rolling. He brought the Texans back to life. He forced overtime. And then, of course, we all know how that game ended. He made that crazy play where he evaded the sack. He hit, I think, Carlos Hyde, or was it the other running back, Duke Johnson? I think it was Carlos Hyde who took it down, I think inside like the 10-yard line. They ended up winning that game. That was a huge play, and he just willed the Texans to a playoff win when they should not have won that game. The Bills were clicking on all cylinders. Their offense was playing very well. The Texans just could not do anything offensively. He resurrected that offense in the second half, and that playoff performance, along with the talent, is why he's at 4 for me. I think he's one of the few quarterbacks in the entire league where you can replace him with just absolute crap, and he will thrive. Like, there's only a few quarterbacks that can do that. And one of them being like Russell Wilson. I think Patrick Mahomes can. I won't say that he. I don't want to say that yet because we haven't seen him.
Right. He's had weapons around his whole career.
He's had better teams than Wilson and Deshaun Watson have. So I don't want to say that just yet. I believe he could, but there's nothing that he's done so far to say that he can. But yeah, Deshaun Watson. He can make plays, and he just thrives when there's nothing around him, when he doesn't have a good support system. And he was a great playoff performer last year. Even against the Chiefs, when they blew that huge lead, he was still good in that game. I just think he's very, very talented. He's a good playoff performer. Even though he hasn't had consistent production so far, he's young, and his performance last year was just really, really good. He had such a great year.
Yeah. My number 3, and probably your number 3 as well, is Drew Brees of the New Orleans Saints. Last year, the stats were a little underwhelming, but that's because he was out for 5 weeks last year with an injury. I think it was a hand, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, Aaron Donald broke his hand with his head.
Yeah, tough scene. But still had a really good year for being out 5 weeks last year. He had a little bit under 3,000 passing yards. He had 2,979. Then had 27 passing touchdowns. That's crazy for being out 5 weeks. He probably would have led the league in touchdowns if he had played the whole season. And then only had 4 interceptions. And the completion percentage was insane, 74%.
Yeah.
Completion percentage. He could be lower just on my list. He could be lower just because of his playoff performances in the past few years. But the production has been insane over his whole career. He's got, 4 or 5,000-yard seasons over his career. By far the most by any quarterback in history of 5,000-yard seasons. He has a Super Bowl under his belt. He has a Super Bowl MVP. He's got 13 Pro Bowls. He's been really good, and he holds the NFL records for passing yards and passing touchdowns and completions. So he has all these things under his belt, but recently in the playoffs, they just have not performed well at all.
Right.
Last year he got he got outplayed by Kirk Cousins, like you said earlier, which really kind of taints his resume for the past 3 years.
Yeah.
But he's still super talented. He's older now. I think he's 41 or 40 or something like that. He's around 40. And he's still slinging the ball, still ridiculously accurate with the ball. He does have a good team around him, and I think next year his stats will be really good again because he'll have Michael Thomas back, but he's also going to have a much better second receiver in Ted Ginn.
No, Emmanuel Sanders.
Excuse me.
No,
sorry.
Ted Ginn sucks, but Emmanuel Sanders.
A much better second receiver than Ted Ginn
Yes.
in Emmanuel Sanders. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
So that's why he's at 3 for me.
Yeah, Drew Brees, he's the most accurate quarterback in the NFL. If you look at the advanced metrics, they support that. And his advanced metrics are insane. And he's still very talented. He's playing in an offense where last year did not have a great – they didn't have a great offense. Like, Kamara struggled with injury, and he had a rough year. I know you had him in fantasy, so you know the pain. You know.
Latavius Murray outplayed Kamara all year,
which is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a rough year for Kamara, and then he only really had one great receiver in Michael Thomas. Like, he didn't have a good second option really, so he had Michael Thomas, and then Jared Cook. Jared Cook had a
weird year.
I won't say up and down. It was mainly down with a few ups. It was like a roller coaster
because you had him in fantasy for a little bit.
Yes, I had him in fantasy, so I know what it's like. And it's like it was like a very boring roller coaster where it's like it was like mainly it was like down. It just staying just.
Kind of like consistently, it went down and then plateaued.
Consistently bad, and then it was like, we got a little bit of no, we don't. No, it's just he sucked last year. So he didn't have like a great set of weapons around him last year, and he still was one of the better quarterbacks in the entire league. Like, he was top 5 in touchdowns, and he missed 5 games with injury.
Yeah,
he's still one of the most talented quarterbacks in the league. The last couple of years, the playoffs have been rough. Like, last year, he got outplayed by Kirk Cousins and. Arguably Taysom Hill, which should not happen. That's unacceptable. But Drew Brees is so talented. He's been so consistent in the regular season, and that talent, along with the consistency, is why I have him here. He's probably going to get passed up by Deshaun Watson and Lamar Jackson soon. I expect those guys to step up and kind of take over. But the consistency, the talent is why he's at 3 for me.
Yeah. All right, so number 2, I assume both of our number 2 is Russell Wilson for the Seahawks. 2019,
I had Taysom Hill too.
Oh, okay. My bad. So 2019, probably, statistically, his best year to date. Had 4,000, a little over 4,000 passing yards, 31 passing touchdowns to 5 interceptions, 66% completion percentage. Rushing yards were not, insane. I think it was, 300 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he is a dual threat guy, but he's more of a passer than a runner.
Right.
But he can run. But he was really good last year. The Seahawks had a fairly talented offense for the first time in a little
The offensive line wasn't great, but he had much better receivers. Tyler Lockett, one of the most underrated receivers in the entire league, in my opinion. He also had DK Metcalf, who was very good as a rookie.
And then what's
he
that
had
tight
Chris
end's
Carson.
name? What's the tight end's
Will
name?
Dissly.
48. He's solid.
He did get hurt, though.
Yeah.
But, yeah, he's good. And then they had Chris Carson, who was really good in fantasy.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
It's probably the best offensive that they've had since when they were winning Super Bowls.
Yeah.
With the Legion of Boom. And had, Marshawn and Doug Baldwin.
Yeah, he finally had pieces around him. The offensive line was still pretty bad, and the defense was okay.
Yeah. But Wilson is just ridiculously talented, and he's been carrying that team. After they finished doing all their Super Bowls, after they lost the Super Bowl to the Patriots, ever since then he's really been carrying that team. It hasn't been about the Legion of Boom. It wasn't the Marshawn Lynch show. It was, okay, this is Russell Wilson's team.
Yeah.
He is in charge, and he's carrying this team. So he's been doing that for a while now. He's been putting up consistently good numbers every single year, and he's just so talented. He can make any throw you want him to, especially on the run. He's very good, and he's just good at making plays out of nothing.
Yeah.
So That's why he's at 2 for me. The only reason he's not at 1 is because there's like a generational talent that we haven't talked about yet.
Yeah, number 2 is Russell Wilson for me. The way he has consistently carried the Seahawks the last couple of years has been extremely impressive. Like, you'll look at their roster and be like, this team sucks, but they have Russell Wilson, so they're competing, they're competitive, and he's a very good playoff performer. His ability to make throws outside of the pocket is unmatched by, like, there's only a few guys who can make plays like he can with that kind of accuracy. Like, Deshaun Watson is close, Aaron Rodgers is close as well, but and Mahomes obviously is close, but Russell Wilson is a different breed. He's been so consistent. I think he was runner-up in MVP voting last year. I might be wrong. I think
that's wrong. Because I'm pretty sure, I swear I saw something. Russell Wilson has never received a single MVP vote.
Well, didn't Lamar win it? He won it unanimously, did he not?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but he hasn't received a single MVP vote. Does it just mean first place vote?
It's gotta
mean just first place.
I don't know. I guess.
But I know the stat you're talking about.
Right.
But I swear he's had to have gotten an MVP vote. Because was he not top 3 in MVP voting last year? He was. I swear on my life that he was.
I don't know, dude.
Like, hold up. Okay.
I don't know how they. I don't know
look that
how
up for me so I can keep talking.
Sure, but I don't know how they vote for MVP. I didn't know if they do like a top 5 or if they just like put in their MVP and hand it in.
I think they do like a top 10
or top. Okay.
Or like a top however many is on the ballot. But yeah, Russell Wilson, his consistency, his playoff performances, just the talent is there, and the way he carries a team without much around them. Last year, their offense was talented. Like Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, Chris Carson, Will Dissly. The offensive line wasn't good, but he had some nice pieces around them. But before that, the past couple of years before that, he's just carried some pretty awful teams. And he's the main reason why they were competitive. That's why he's number 2 on my list. And yeah, Thomas already mentioned there's a generational, like one of the most talented quarterbacks of all time is at number 1 for us. But yeah, Russell Wilson, one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Actually, Colin Cowherd thinks he's the best player in the NFL. So there's that.
Calm down.
Yeah. So I just saw a video from Colin Cowherd's show where like a month back he ranked the top 10 players in the league, and he had Russell Wilson when he had Mahomes 4, which is insane. He had Christian McCaffrey ahead of Mahomes, 2 spots ahead of Mahomes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, all right.
Yeah, I couldn't find anything about that. I think I don't know. I assume that he would have come in second last year just because he was it was between him and Lamar.
So he was an MVP candidate.
Okay, yeah, he was an MVP candidate for sure.
Yeah, like he's being talked about, and Deshaun Watson was up there too. But yeah, Russell at the end it was like Russell Wilson or Lamar.
As well. Yeah. So number 1, obviously Patrick Mahomes for the Chiefs. All right, let's just talk about this resume for him.
Yeah. The resume for this guy is insane.
2-year starter, only 2-year starter, Super Bowl champion, Super Bowl 54 champion, Super Bowl 54 MVP, Pro Bowl in both years as a starter. He was first team All-Pro in his first year as a starter. He was the 2018 MVP, which is his first year as a starter, and 2018 Offensive Player of the Year. He led the league in touchdowns in 2018. I don't think he led the league in passing yards because Ben Roethlisberger had more passing yards than him. But that resume is insane. Already has a Super Bowl MVP, a league MVP, an Offensive Player of the Year, 2 Pro Bowls, and a first-team All-Pro in 2 years. Enough said.
Yeah, Mahomes is insane. Obviously, he's the most talented quarterback in the league. Easily. I think he's the most quarterback. The most quarterback. I think he's the most talented quarterback we've ever seen. Like, I think he's more talented than Rodgers. Like, he is insane. He can make throws no one else in the entire league can make. Not Russell Wilson, not Drew Brees, Deshaun Watson, Aaron Rodgers. Nobody. Nobody comes close in terms of talent to Mahomes. And even in accolades, like this, the way that Mahomes has performed in the playoffs the last 2 years is insane. For how young he is, it's incredible. He was great as a rookie in the playoffs.
Like, if D Ford had moved back 2 inches, he would have
possibly won the Super Bowl. Possibly.
I'm gonna say probably.
Well, the Rams.
The Rams were not that good.
No, did the Rams beat them in the regular season? Because that was one of the craziest games I've ever seen.
I think they did. Oh, I don't remember. That game was insane
because there was a corner for one of the teams that just like wet the bed. He was terrible.
Marcus Peters probably.
I don't think it was Peters. I'm pretty sure it wasn't Peters. But yeah, like if D4 wasn't offsides in the AFC Championship game versus the Patriots, the Chiefs could have 2 Super Bowls by now. But yeah, Mahomes, the throws he makes.
It was the Rams that won. They won 54-51.
Yeah, I don't know who the corner was then, but the throws that Mahomes can make on the run, off platform, the arm strength, the accuracy, his football IQ, the development that he's shown from college to now is unprecedented. And he's just insane. The accolades back it up. He's been consistently good. I mean, he's only had 2 years of good production, but it's been such insanity that he's the best quarterback in the league. I don't think you can argue anybody else. Like, if you put anybody else number 1, you're insane. Mahomes is the best quarterback in the National Football League. And
at Colin Cowherd.
And he is on a path to becoming the GOAT. If he and let's be honest, the Chiefs would suck without him.
They were all right with Alex Smith.
They would suck without him.
Ooh.
I don't think they would be that great without him.
Maybe a hot take.
They are not.
They're not going to be. They're not a Super Bowl champion.
They are not competing.
They're competing.
No, they're not.
They have enough weapons.
No, they're not. They are not competing.
They're competing.
Mahomes makes that team better.
He makes that team better, but I think they're.
He makes that team exponentially better. They are awful defensively, and without him, that offense is nowhere near as good as it is. Like, Tyreek Hill is nowhere near as good as he is without Patrick Mahomes.
Okay.
Because he wasn't as good with Alex Smith, because Alex Smith does not have the arm. Mahomes elevates everyone on that team. And without him, they are not Super Bowl contenders.
They're not Super Bowl contenders, but I think they're still like competing for a spot in the playoffs.
Like if you replace them with obviously like with Russell Wilson, they would still be like contenders.
Right.
But past that, I don't think there's a whole lot of quarterbacks that could take this team to the promised land.
I think maybe Deshaun could.
I wouldn't bet on it. I think Mahomes is much better than Deshaun.
I think Mahomes is definitely better than Deshaun as well.
I think it's like a gap, like big gap. And no disrespect to Deshaun, Mahomes is just insane. But like you look at their defense, it's not very good. And I mean the receiving core. I mean he's got Kelsey, he's got Hill, but I think he elevates Hill. And I love Hill. I think Hill's a top 5 receiver. Part of that is because he has Mahomes. Because Mahomes is with Mahomes' arm strength, it just elevates Hill and it just makes him into this just nightmare for defenses to cover. But like their offensive line is okay. It's not great, but like besides Hill, the receiving core isn't great. I think Mahomes elevates those guys and makes them look better than they actually are. Because besides Hill, I mean Sammy Watkins is solid. I don't think he's good.
Mecole Hardman is solid.
I think
Mahomes did make him much better than he actually is. So, yeah, I see what you're saying. I think there are other quarterbacks where they could still compete.
I think the only other one is Russell Wilson. He's the only one where I can say, okay, I think this team is going to be super competitive and can contend for a Super Bowl.
I get that.
Besides that, nobody else. I would not be because I think the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl. With the addition of Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Willie Gay, unless if Mahomes gets hurt, yeah, they're probably not going to win the Super Bowl.
They could compete with Matt Moore.
But if Mahomes, no. But if Mahomes stays healthy, I think they're winning the Super Bowl, and they're going to be Super Bowl contenders for years to come because of Mahomes.
For sure,
he just elevates everybody. He's the ultimate guy who can carry a team. And just he elevates everyone around him and makes them better. Yeah. But yeah, Mahomes is number 1, and that was easy. Like he should be everyone's number 1. I don't know what Colin Cowherd is smoking, but yeah, Mahomes is number 1. He's insane and might be the greatest quarterback of all time when it's all said and done. Yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much all we got for today. I hope y'all enjoyed this, and we will see y'all next time.